Hi, this is Bea from Sorcery Soap, and today we're going to have a little chat about stencils, and hopefully less tutorial, more information. Hopefully I'll be able to inspire you to think a little bit differently about your soap creations. So some of the things I've been working on lately are these layered ones, like this. This one has gray behind it, and I think that's useful in the sense that shadow work. Ah, interesting, because see, that's the outline of this is what I call the shadow of the goat. So I'll explain, because I think it's important. So some of you know that I'm making stencils for soap. Lots of reasons why I'm doing this, but mostly because it's intriguing to me right now, and it just seems like an interesting way forward. So make them in this material first, and then I have them produced, and I practice with them a ton of times. So I don't know if you can see that. If you can see this outline right here, so that's the shadow. Do I have a goat here? Yeah, here. So that's the shadow of this, which gets stenciled first, and then you stencil over top of that. And so I'll show you how to do the shadow, and then you have to let it dry, and then you could put this on top of it, so you have the black raised. So doing my best to answer a lot of the questions that come up, which is good. I'm glad everybody's asking questions, and I know it baffles a bit, and that's also very good, because anything that baffles your mind is rather intriguing, if you ask me. So so here's the shadow of this, which is the white soap dough. And let me see, do I have it right here? I have so many stencils, it's insane right now. I can't even keep track. No, I don't see my tiger right now, but the tiger is the black part. Oops, got a little detritus there. So let's see, let's get that off of there. There. So a couple things that have been coming up. The one most predominant question is that going to last? First of all, they don't wash off that fast. They wash off a couple uses, because this is, if you can see, that's just a thin layer of soap dough. And as we know, soap dissolves. It wears away. And in the process the other day of me making a video, I was talking about coins, and I realized coins also wear away. But nobody ever says that. They don't look at it and go, oh, is that going to stay forever? Well, silvers and gold are very soft metals, so they have to have alloys in them to last, and they have to have things have to last as long as they're useful, essentially. And when they're you don't want things hanging around like plastic bags that are no longer useful but are distressing to deal with, right? And so lasts as long as it's useful. And all this is meant for a lot of reasons. First of all, the creator has fun with it. Secondly, the person using it is intrigued by it. And thirdly, it's soap. It's good for your skin. Well, it's less bad than other things. Soap is actually good. It's good to be clean. It's good to wash off the top layer periodically. So we don't say even about our skin is like, will it last? Of course it doesn't last. The top layer of the skin constantly is moving off of our body. So the thinking behind that, will it last? There's a couple things that I think happen with that. One is that there's a fear of losing something that they like, right? And I understand that entirely. And then the other thing is that sometimes people say things just to prove something, to prove what their agenda is. And we kind of avoid that. We want to avoid that. So that's irrelevant as far as this topic goes. But anyway, more to the point, I wanted to show you some of the stencils I'm working on that I think are super fun, and show you what I'm dealing with today. So we have new stencils coming. There's just a host of them. There's the gnomes, the layered gnomes, and the grumpy cat, and oh, just tons and tons. I have hundreds of designs now. And the reason I have so many designs is because, you know, the stars are great, right? These are the stars. The stars are great. And once you've stenciled a few times, you go, oh, and then the ideas start to come, and the possibilities and the layering possibilities. I mean, clearly these stencils, these stars could be layered behind any of these, right? And then you could layer on top of them. I mean, it just goes on, the ideas. That's why the stencils are so much fun. So we have the haunted houses. I clearly have used that. Let me see where the match is. The haunted houses are coming. So those are really fun. It says haunted house windows on this one, and then there's a little etch of the house, and then there's the haunted house. So when you put it over top, you can see exactly where it needs to be. And that's pretty cool. I've done that with orange. Maybe I'll put a picture in. You've seen some of it maybe that follow. And all you have to do, and I'm going to show you that here today, believe it or not, after I get done with my word salad. Here's my gnome. So the hat and the feet, and then you put the beard on, and then you put the nose on. Takes a little bit of patience to do it, but there's some cool things that can happen with patience. We have a hawk. That's very cool. We have a pair of mated hawks over where we walk every day. They had 3 babies, which is, you know, my guy kept telling me there was 3, and I just couldn't see it. I couldn't see it because my mind said that's not usual for a hawk pair, a mated hawk pair, to have more than 2 babies. It's not usual, but I saw them yesterday. So some things require belief, some things require proof. And anyway, so this is my cow, one of my cows. I have a couple cows because I like the cows. I created this guy, just so you know, like some of these I've purchased and then reworked so that they fit with soap dough. And how I rework them is my secret, but I've reworked them. Some of them I've taken a picture, and I say take, I mean I have free use to use these pictures as I see fit. I've contributed to a community, and so there's an exchange, and even if you don't contribute, you can still use them. They're copyright free. So instead of just taking something that everybody else has done, and what I try to do is create something that you've not seen before in soap dough, and also create, I don't know, for me, like I really like those unusual things that you can't find anywhere else. So that's what I try to create. So this cow, no, here, let me do this. Maybe I should just. So I have this cow right here, so you can see, oh, there we go, is this cow. And then he has his shadow, or she has her shadow. She has kind of lovely eyes, is behind here to give more depth and clarity to the silhouette. However, the silhouette is perfectly fine on a contrasting bar, which, who can't dislike that? That's pretty cool, right? And so I'm just cleaning up some corners here. That's the other thing too. Don't hesitate to get in there and just detail your stuff if you want. Otherwise, just do your thing, right? Anyway, so this cow didn't exist as a stencil before I got a hold of the image. I created the stencil itself. I created the silhouette and the stencil, the whole thing. So you're not going to find a lot of these images. You know, obviously there's cow stencils in the world. I'm not the first to do that by any stretch, but my unique version of this is here. And I appreciate you that follow, because that's kind of what you're looking at. You've been following me along for a while and seeing all my weirdness and sometimes my coolness. But, and you know, I can't create every single thing that every single person would want, but I try to do some things that we're in harmony with, where I like it and you like it too. So anyway, so there's the shadow. So the shadow goes, this is a little smaller version because these bars are pretty big and I want them to fit a little bit better. But anyway, I really like the cow face, put it there. So we're going to show you some of that stuff. And oh, here's the gnome that I mentioned. So the gnome hat and the feet go together, and you let that dry, and then you put the beard on, let that dry, and then you put the nose on, and then you have a gnome. And you know, one of the things about gnomes and why I was so tickled to make this, and I don't know if you can see kind of how thick that is, right? The more layers you put on, the longer it'll last because there's just more soap there. And but the gnomes, you see the hat, like I've made gnomes for a lot of years and stuck them on top, which are really cool and fun. But then when you go to use the bar, it's not as quite as fun. And that's not to take away anything from the creations on top, because I think those are really fun too. And this is just what I'm into. Not one is better or worse. You don't have to hate your job to find a new one, right? I don't dislike all the top features or embeds or any of that stuff. This is just a new version, and for me, this is something new that I'm interested in, and then I find that other people are kind of interested in it. And the other thing that I really like about this is that people that thought that they couldn't like mold or sculpt anything in soap dough, no matter how much I've tried to encourage people and step you through it or step others through it, just sort of were daunted by the whole thing. And hopefully stencils help people to create in a way that is less threatening. Threatening is such a word, but you know what I mean. Like, maybe you don't, but less daunting, and then have greater results. Because I mean, could you just see this like a Christmas soap with these little gnomes on it? I don't know why I thought of Christmas, but yeah. And I have Christmas, I have reindeers and Santa's coming, and so those will all be ready. This next stencil release will all be ready for that. And I have new ideas that I wanted to share with you too. So, and let me set these aside. Running out of space over here, of course. Okay. So, yeah, so this is pretty complicated. I will see if I get into this one. I really like this. There's so much work that needed to happen in order to make sure certain breaks and then keep the overall effect of it, and it is quite tricky. So, but maybe we'll have like an accelerated class or an advanced class, and I can show you how that works and teach you to be patient, because really that's what it is patience about when you release it and you pull it off and stuff. So okay, so this, I just made some hands yesterday, which I thought were really fun. It was just an experiment just to see if I could. So this is my very first one, and that didn't come out very well, but it kind of gave me the idea, and so I moved into this guy, and then this one I just wrapped around, which I thought was really cool. And so that's the test. And the other thing too, let's see where we have. I wanted to do these. Oh, I don't have it in front of me. I'll have to get some. I'll just show you with white. So let's see what else. So not all of them have to have the shadow behind it. Some of them can just be, it just really depends on the contrast of your bar, I suppose. So I have some black bars back there in my curing room, on my curing rack, that I'd like to be able to use stencils on, but they're black, and so you can't use, and then the white looks good on it, but having higher contrast is even better. So we'll see, maybe I'll work on those today. Okay, anyway. So this is my prototype stencil. I fixed that eye so that it comes through a bit more, because I like that. But you can see all the little details in here. Is like, it takes a minute to do these. I don't know if y'all have watched Julia Usher. She's one of my go-to people when I want to see somebody go down the rabbit hole of detail and not be afraid. She's quite fearless when it comes to details, and her work is just amazing, truly amazing. And that is an exercise in patience all day. So here we go. We're going to do this guy, and I'm going to show you what this looks like. So there's lots of new ideas coming, and I'm really grateful that people jump on board and say, well, I really like that stencil, I really like that stencil. I'm really grateful for that, and trust me, I'm listening. To the best of my ability, I'm listening, and I work with other people, so I can't necessarily just do as I will. I'm at the whim of them and the level of their production line. So so there's that. So I'm going to talk you through this so that you can see some of the things that I'm doing. So first of all, this is a cured bar soap. we're in the curing process. It's not completely cured, so it's not been cured for 8 weeks. We're at about, I don't know, 3 weeks maybe, because I usually clean them up about a week to 2 weeks into the curing process. They get so hard that it's such a pain to plane them, and I plane them off on all sides if necessary. Sometimes they come out of the mold really clean. The yellow in here is the green. That happens with green sometimes. It doesn't want to come completely through, and so the yellow floats to the top or something. I'm not sure, sort of separates. But anyway, so I plane them off, and then I have a nice flat surface, and I really like the feel of how smooth it is. That's really appealing. We put, I've written in my books about it, we put silk, and we have a cultivated recipe, because the feeling of the soap and the hardness of the soap are two very important things to me. So I put soap dough in an extruder only so that I don't have to keep taking it out of the plastic. And you can absolutely leave it in plastic, and then I roll it up into this because it's easier to smooth on. So there's nothing done to this. No alcohol will make it not stick. It makes it float. So just think about that for a second, and you can test it, and don't take my word for it. Test it yourself and see. The water in alcohol can give you a false stick, because water makes soap stick. How it works, I'm not really sure. I have a general impression of how it works. So we're going to place this on here just however we want, and then hold it down. You have to hold it down, right? And some of the things you want to be aware of is, as you're smoothing or as you're putting the soap dough on, you want to move with the stencil, not against the stencil. So here are these lines for the finger. If I moved against it, I would be pushing it this way, and it'll go up underneath. So that can happen a little bit, but like here, we're going to move into that. But you don't want to force that, because I do that all the time. I go, whoa, why did I just mess that up? So it's because I wasn't paying attention. So, even with stencil work, you have to be a little bit mindful. So it takes a minute. So as you can see, why I'm putting my fingers on either side of the stencil, this is the other thing and why I started creating stencils, is because the stencils that I found were too close, too jammed together. Like this part, I don't mind, because this whole thing could fit on a larger bar, and so I could just do that. But I can also avoid this or scrape it off when I'm done. So that's one part. The other part is that there wasn't, on the store-bought stencils I was finding, and even some other stencils that were made for other objectives, what I was finding is there's not enough places to put your hand around the stencil. Here, let me show you better. Like this, right? So I can do this. I could put my fingers around it, and I could utilize all this space. That's why the cards are exactly the size they are. That's why the shape inside is exactly the size it is, so that you have an opportunity to grab onto this. And this is why these are made specifically for soap. Now we can use these. I started stenciling a t-shirt the other day. I can use these for a variety of different things, and most stencils don't. This is what I've seen. Most stencils don't come this detailed, this small. They come larger. And I've been able to find lots of stencils online, but not the subject matter or the detail that I want. So that's why I'm creating them. Anyway, with that said, see this whole plane right through here? That's important for when you scrape the soap dough off. So now I have this soap dough here. I'm going to put I dip my finger in the water so you can see that, and I just put a little water on top. Not a lot, just a little. And then this is my palette knife. I found it on Amazon. It just happened to like it. I bought it for some other purpose, but I happen to like it for that. It has a little bend in it like that. So the other ones that I have are a little bit too firm to do this. So I like that it has bend. So I stick my finger on here, and then I just wipe it across, okay? So, and now this is stuck pretty good, but mostly you want to make sure that that is like you're holding it down so it doesn't move. I have a cookie cutter here, and I scrape that off to clean my stencil off, right? That's why this cloth is down here. Plus it helps me to move without picking it up. So this is a thin stencil, and this is my test stencil. These white ones are a bit thicker, so you have opportunity to leave more dough in the center. I can make them even thicker, but I thought it's not really the look. What I would like is for it to be sort of an illusion. So anyway, let's get on with this. So I'm trying to leave as much soap dough on top. Oop, I just moved it. Did you see that? Okay, so let's recenter. Let's refix that and then do this. Okay, great. So it might be a little off now. Okay, so here's the things that I'm looking for when I'm doing this to help you get cleaner stencils. You want to look inside each stencil area where the soap dough is, and then you also want to look, okay, so if I keep taking soap dough off, I'm not going to have very much of a print, right? So you want to look inside the stencil area. You also want to look to the edge. So this we want to be really faint and try to clean off as much as we can around the edge. Now it depends, it really depends. On a detailed stencil like this one, it has to be much more exact because all these little lines don't have much surface space to adhere to the layer below. Okay, so this has more surface space and it sticks to the soap bar because we've just mashed it in there, and then we used a little water and it helped to smooth it down. So I run my finger across it because just the little bit of ridges that you have in your finger smooths that soap dough out. Not too much, but smooths it out, okay? So there's that. And now give it a spray with alcohol because you want it to release, right? And then the other thing, so as I lift it up, that alcohol starts to run around those little edges and let that soap dough go from the stencil. Until it pops right off. I just put very little pressure. And now the edges might kind of come up, so just let that alcohol dry. If I touch it right now with a paintbrush, this is just stained, but if I touch it with a paintbrush, I'm going to smear it. So if I let it dry just a second, once I can see that the alcohol is all evaporated off, I can pat it with my finger or pat it with a paintbrush, and it'll stick to the bar below. It'll stick to the surface below. So anyway, I wanted to show you that because I hope that really helps you in your stencil adventures. And for those that are following, I'm really, really grateful that you're interested in this. I think it's super fun, and the encouragement's really helpful because, like I said, it's not, we all have different ideas. Like the goat, not everybody wants a goat, but not everybody wants a tiger either. And some days I don't want a goat, some days I want a tiger, and vice versa. So I think it's it's good that you've asked lots of questions and you've helped me to understand things just a bit more. So here's a good example. You see this right here? This is just the gray. I put gray soap dough on it and with the white on the shadow part, and it started to create a shadow on there. I think that's a new idea. That's something interesting to move into. And this obviously needs a bit cleaned up right there. And this I just made the other day. That's the other really nice thing about these, is that you can make them and they're gonna cure pretty quickly. So you can actually stencil on a fully cured bar and know that just give it a couple, maybe a week or so, and then it's cured. Because it's so thin, it'll evaporate really quickly. So if you have any comments or questions, these are the hands, the new hands. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below and I'll be happy to get to them and answer them the best that I can. And thank you so much for watching.